What's up, you guys? This is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on the Snapshot, we've got our hands on one sexy switch hitter when we take a look at the Hystrix. Now, you can pick up the Hystrix's blueprints in the market for 25,000 credits. Just do be aware it does require a Mastery Rank 7, as well as a fully built Bolto and Viper to craft. Now, if you don't want to deal with any of that, you can always pick it up pre-built along with a weapon slot and catalyst for 225. And if you feel like a big spender, you can always pick up the Core Collection, which includes the Hystrix as well as some other goodies for 725. But I'll let you take a look at that yourself. So the Hystrix is a semi-automatic dart gun with a set of strong critical stats. Sitting at 24% critical chance and a 2.2 times critical damage multiplier, it can lay out most enemies with the appropriate elemental combo. However, for those pesky enemies that don't die so easily, the Hystrix packs an additional punch. Using your secondary fire swaps into different elemental quills, forcing the status procs of whichever base element you selected. Note that the damage component of each of these procs is strengthened by both your weapon's base damage as well as any matching elemental mods. For example, toxin mods will increase the damage over time that each poison quill leaves behind. Just note that the quills themselves contain no elemental properties, which means that they do not combine with any of the elements you currently have equipped on your weapon. And for those of you out there who are fond of elemental combos, do be aware that the Hystrix can still proc the ones you've equipped, but at a lesser rate since its base status chance is only 10%. However, don't be fooled. Once the base multi-shot and a pair of elemental status mods are equipped, this does jump up to 50%, which still gives you a good shot at stripping armor, having health, or whatever your little heart desires. Now, as for the build, it is all pretty standard. As you can see, we've got our base damage mods, our critical mods, our multi-shot mods, and 2 status elemental mods to boost up the status chance of this weapon. However, we do have a little bit of an odd man out. You can switch this one if you want, however, let me give you the information behind it. Now, like I had said earlier in the scripted portion, elemental mods will actually strengthen the type of quill that they are on. So because this build is tailored towards poison quills, the pathogen rounds actually ends up giving us a bigger toxin bonus to all of the procs that come off of it. And the other reason that I actually wanted to use it on this build is because if I put Augur Pact on, while it's a fantastic mod, what it does is it evenly raises all of the IPS and the elements that are on this thing. However, by putting on pathogen rounds, you actually get the whole damage spread skewed a little bit more over towards corrosive, so that way you have more of a chance to strip enemy armor, which is what I'm trying to do here. Now, when I went ahead and tested these both head-to-head, Augur Pact and the pathogen rounds build, for the most part, pretty much performed the same. The only difference is the occasional moment when pathogen rounds would have more corrosive procs than Augur Pact, and that tended to happen more often than not. So what would actually end up going down is sometimes you would end up taking a big baddie down in 2 clips, as opposed to, you know, maybe the 4 clips that you needed with Augur Pact, or when you got unlucky with the corrosive pathogen rounds version of this build. So I wanted to go ahead and show you how this performs, then go ahead and compare Augur Pact against it so I can show you how the toxin procs work off of that. We'll do a little bit of condition overload, and then I don't know, but let's just jump in. So as you can see, we've got our good old friend Mr. Billy ready to go, and we've got our poison quills loaded up. That is the default shot that we have there. And as you can see, as we're going through this, we are getting tons and tons of toxin procs, and it's really eating away at the enemy. So for me, because of the fact that we have so many toxin procs, I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll go with pathogen rounds instead. So let me do that one more time. And then I'll go ahead and switch a couple things up so you can see exactly how this elemental mod ends up affecting the procs that come with the quill. So let's finish them off. And I mean, it still does take a while to take down a big baddie like Mr. Billy over there. However, it's still pretty gosh darn effective. The mags are small, so it does feel kind of bad not necessarily having, not necessarily being able to take them out in a clip or 2, but you know, it's a small magazine, what are you gonna do? Let's go ahead and I'm gonna actually swap this over to viral, and the main reason I'm gonna swap this over to viral is I don't want to strip any armor when I show you the example. So I Yeah, so let's go ahead. I don't know why. My brain is kind of like not quite working the best right at this very moment. It's been a long day, okay? So let's go ahead and crack our whip. And we're going to just give him a quick shot to the head. So as you can see there, we are doing 47 damage per tick with that toxin. So let me reinforce that just because I have bad short-term memory. It is 47. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and run up here. And I'm going to take off the toxin mod. So let's do that. And we're going to put on Augur Pact. So as you can see right there, we took that off, and we took a bit of a hit to the poison damage that is on this weapon, but as you can see, we went from 47 to 38. And I was getting headshots both those times, because I could do a shoulder shot right there, and you can see it's like 10 and 2. But headshots will deal the 38. So we did take a little bit of a hit there when it comes to the toxin damage, and that's why I felt like, because of the fact that we're getting the same kills per second, or this, you know, the same kills per second with the Hystrix, increasing the toxin damage versus using Augur Pact, which doesn't have as much in the ways of the toxin procs and the corrosive procs. I was just kind of like, let's do that. However, what I will say is that for this specific setup, if you want to use Augur Pact and then just swap out the two elements as you see fit for the appropriate enemies that you're facing, that's actually a little bit more consistent, a little bit easier, probably a little bit better for you guys. Unless you're running with something like gas for like a lot of toxin, then just go ahead and stick with pathogen rounds. Another thing that I did want to mention that is kind of weird, and I'm gonna point this out right here, is that not all of these quills deal the same damage. They all pretty much share the exact same stats. Like, as you can see, they all have 68.9 critical chance and 4.6 times critical multipliers, right? That's the same all the way through, same reload speed, all of that. There's not much to that, but you will notice that if you pay attention to this puncture number, that poison and cold quills deal less damage than fire and electric quills. I don't know if that's intentional, but it's true. So we've got 354 there, and as you can see here, we have 394 on the fire quills and the electric quills. But on the cold quill, just like the toxin quill, we have 354. I don't know what the deal is. It's a weird, and it's at its base damage too. It's not some weird funky modding. So as you can see, at its base, we're looking at 31 puncture on poison. But if you look at the fire, it's 34.4. It's a weird thing. I don't understand, but it's what exists. So what we're gonna do real quick is we're gonna finish this off with kind of like the thing that everybody has been really excited for. However, I, with my realistic brain, is a little bit like, I don't really know if I feel all that strongly about it. It's a cool parlor trick. It's something cool that you do in the simulacrum to show off how like strong a weapon is. You know, when you're kind of like stunting and you want some of those like the simulacrum kind of spectacle, as I like to call it. You know, the spectacle fighting. It's fantastic, but I don't necessarily think it's actually realistic. And of course, we're gonna go and jump in with our little friend, the Glaive Prime, and we're gonna make sure that we are using the appropriate colors as well, because that's just the thing. So what you guys know is with my Glaive Prime, I do have Condition Overload on it. So we've got that going for that. And as you know, the Hystrix can go ahead and swap its elemental procs. So what we can do is we can team these two up for something kind of deadly, as long as I can hit my power throws. So we toss on some toxin, we toss on some fire, we toss on some electricity, we toss on some cold. Then we go ahead and we throw our glaive at it, and this guy's pretty much dead before I can even hit another glaive. Because of the fact that Condition Overload triggers on having so many elemental procs going on, and it gets bonus damage from all of that, you get a lot of bonus damage when it comes to your throwing weapons. You can do this with other weapons as well. So don't think that it just has to be specifically this. I mean, like, look at that. I didn't even hit the power throw for that one. I was bad. I didn't even hit the power throw for that one. Now, again, I genuinely don't believe that this is something that you're actually going to be doing in the wild. It's something that you kind of have and you use as a little, you know, cool party trick. You're like, oh, electric proc, oh, ice proc, oh, toxic proc, oh, fire proc, oh, okay. Then we go ahead and throw a freaking glaive at you and it's dead. And that's cool, but I think that we can all be realistic and understand the fact that this is not something that you're gonna do on the regular basis. I just can't, I could not picture like incorporating this into normal standard combat just because of the fact that it is, I don't know, it's just too ridiculous. Toss it in the comments below if you think that it's absolutely ridiculous and it's just like limited to simulacrum spectacle fighting. No hate to the simulacrum spectacle fighters out there, but you know, in real time, maybe I'll get 2 of these off and then I'll throw it just for a little extra bonus, but I don't think that I would actually do like a full-on force stack to get as much damage out there as possible. Regardless, that about does it for me and the Hystrix for now. Those are the facts and figures. I actually really enjoy it. I think it's really cool. It's interesting because it made me think about modding it in a different way. Right? It's not something that we get every day when it comes to a weapon, where you're like, oh, I'll just mod it the standard mod and we'll be fine. And in the most part, you know, you are fine with the Hystrix. But when you think about the way that the elements work with this weapon itself, you can actually kind of skew some of the builds just a little bit differently to perform a tad bit better. So that I really kind of appreciate, especially because there's a lot of copy and paste builds out there that do get a bit boring. However, that's it for that part. If you guys want to stick around for a gameplay, I'll have some coming up next. So admittedly, I think the bigger reason that I am into this weapon is because I am absolutely lazy when it comes to swapping elements, and I think that's been a consistent theme, especially if you guys have seen me on stream. I'm never in the mood to swap elements on my weapons. For the most part, Warframe isn't necessarily the most difficult game out there, right? So a lot of the times you can just kind of like barrel through certain mission types, and you're just like, you know what, I'm not gonna swap. I'm just gonna keep shooting, or I'm just gonna keep meleeing harder. A couple extra swings and those guys will be out of it. But the great thing about the Hystrix is you can feel kind of good by swapping your elements out, even though, you know, it's, you know, what's the word I want to call it? It's like the thing where it's not really a solution, but it makes you feel kind of better. It's the pills. And listen, I know you guys in the comments will tell me exactly what I'm talking about. It's those pills that you take that you think you're doing a better job with, but you're really not. So it's kind of like that feeling where you're like, ooh, you know, I'm in a Corpus mission, but I'm still using corrosive, but you know what? It's okay, because guess what? I can swap over to poison, because poison is good against them, and it'll bypass their armor, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I feel good about myself. Because let's be real, all of us are lazy to a degree. I'm never really fond of those people that try to say, well, no, I use vacuum because it's more efficient. Bitch, it's because you're lazy. Just like I'm lazy with swapping out my elements, we all have things that we just don't feel like doing. And that's definitely one of the reasons why I like it. I also really like how imaginative this weapon is, right? It's unlike something that we've ever seen before when it comes to Warframe. In fact, it almost scares me just a little bit. The thought of the fact that DE's come up with a bunch of really crazy weapons lately. And a part of me is along the lines of like, oh, they've come up with all of these really interesting and different weapons. We've got different fire types on weapons. We've got a weapon that's innately silent. And now we're like swapping elemental status forced procs on weapons. I'm like, okay, this makes me nervous, because I'm like, what else you got, DE? Like, we've been at this for 5 years. There's only so many more iterations that we could possibly have, right? There's only so many more different versions, and I think that somebody had actually said it. They were talking about the new Velt, and they're like, this is basically like the Latron Prime, right? And I'm like, I don't know. I was never a fan of the Latron Prime, so I don't know its stats off the top of my head. But, you know, there comes a point where it's just really a bunch of iteration. And it got me thinking. I was like, okay, this is a really imaginative weapon, and I don't want to put a hamper on it, but it's almost kind of like, all right, is this the end of the line? What more do we have to look forward to that's not just going to be another version of something else? And I mean, in this, I guess I can't really say in this weapon's defense, but, you know, I mean, if we're going to be realistic with it, if we take a look at this weapon, it's basically like the Acrid, but an Acrid that can swap elemental types, right? I mean, the swapping of elemental types is still really, really different and really, really cool, but this is kind of like one of those ones where you're like, I've kind of seen you before, but this is like an upgraded twist to it. So yeah, it's definitely got me a little shook because I am excited. I'm like, it's a really, really cool weapon. It's a really, really cool concept. But how many more we got, DE? How many more we got in us? Now, I've said a lot of good things about this weapon, but I did want to kind of note some bad things, because there are a couple things that do kind of irk me with this. One of which is, of course, the fact that it's not the most ammo efficient weapon on the block. It's definitely, you know, especially at higher levels, when I was taking this onto a couple onslaughts, and when I was taking this over to, what is it called, some of the Kuba Floods I went on earlier today, I was like, oh, this is good, but I had like just enough ammo for the mission. You know what I mean? Like towards the end of the mission, I was like picking up a couple, I was looking around for a couple ammo pads here and there, and usually passively I don't really have to think about that. Now, of course, if you're a vacuum user and you've got a little bit of a carrier there, transforming some of your ammo for you, fine and dandy, but I like my cats, so that doesn't really help my situation, does it? Regardless, that is definitely one of the downsides, and the other downside is, while independently they're not bad, paired together, there is a little bit of a I'm like, but that's kind of like irritating. Is the, what is it called? Is the reload speed and magazine size of this. It just kind of perfectly fits in to like this really annoying thing where the magazine size is just small enough for you to feel like you're needing to oh, I should probably change this. How about that? Can I do that? No, not that one. How about Fire Quill? Does that do anything? Hold on. I might have to like go down on this guy. There you go. You're down, and you should be out very, very soon. This is what I mean about, you know, just trying to overpower enemies. This is kind of like what's happening right now. It's like, I'm just gonna beat him to death, and I'm not gonna be fancy with it. But no, like I was saying, the reload speed and were there two of them? Holy crap. The reload speed and the magazine size make you feel like you are legitimately constantly reloading over and over and over again. And I understand it's like only it's only a 1.7 reload speed, and the magazine is 16, which isn't terrible, but it's just that perfect amount of annoyance where you're like, oh, god damn it. God, if either one of you, like, I was actually thinking about earlier when I was considering, ooh, like, what would happen? I could like get a ribbon for this. That would be kind of dope, right? So I was thinking to myself, I was like, all right, let's. What would be the stats that you would want on a ribbon? And I was like, a part of me was like, you know what? I wouldn't hate it if ooh, my throat. I wouldn't hate it if, you know, I got some good stats and then I got like plus reload speed at the same time. I'm like, okay, like maybe plus reload speed or like plus magazine size. Usually I'd kind of like scoff at those. But for this weapon, I was like, nah, maybe it wouldn't be so terrible. You know, you get yourself a little crit chance, a little status chance, and like magazine size. Usually I'd be like, nope. But in this case, I'd be like, oh, okay, magazine size, not too bad. I think I'll take that. But yeah, so that's kind of like the downsides to this weapon. However, overall, I am having a lot of fun with it. And, you know, it is unique and a little bit different, a little bit fun to play with. You can also see that I did not use my Glaive Prime once to do a condition overload thing with because, again, lazy play. But legitimately, I don't feel like it's a realistic play either. Regardless, let me know all of your feels about the Hystrix. Are you guys kind of there with me? Are you like in that veteran mode where you're like, all right, DE, I saw you with the Hystrix. I saw you with the Tiburon Prime. I saw you with the Baza. You know, doing all this weird shit to weapons, and you're like, what else do you got? What more do you have out there? They'll probably just give us like, I don't know, some sort of spear gun that turns every enemy into like Bambi or something. I don't know. Regardless, let me know how you feel about the Hystrix in the comments below. And as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.